Leviticus 21, instructions for the priests. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the priests, the descendants of Aaron. A priest must not make himself ceremonially unclean by touching the dead body of a relative. The only exceptions are his closest relatives, his mother or father, son or daughter, brother or his virgin sister who depends on him because she has no husband. But a priest must not defile himself and make himself unclean for someone who is related to him only by marriage. The priests must not shave their beard or trim their beards or cut their bodies. They must be set apart as holy to their God and must never bring shame on the name of God. They must be holy, for they are the ones who present the special gifts to the Lord and gifts of food for their God. Priests may not marry a woman defiled by prostitution, and they may not marry a woman who is divorced from her husband, for the priests are set apart as holy to their God. You must treat them as holy because they offer up food to your God. You must consider them holy because I, the Lord, am holy, and I make you holy. If a priest's daughter defiles herself by becoming a prostitute, she also defiles her father's holiness, and she must be burned to death. The high priest has the highest rank out of all priests. An anointing oil has been poured on his head, and he has been ordained to wear the priestly garments. He must never leave his hair on a comb or tear his clothing. He must not defile himself by going near a dead body, and he must not make himself ceremonially unclean, even for his father or mother, and he must not defile his sanctuary of his God by leaving it to attend to a dead person, for he has been made holy by the anointing oil of his God. I am the Lord. The high priest may marry only a virgin. He may not marry a widow, a woman who is divorced, or a woman who has defiled herself by prostitution. She must be a virgin from his own clan, and so that he will not dishonor his descendants among his clan, for I am the Lord who makes him holy. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to Aaron. In all future generations, none of your descendants who has any defect will qualify to offer food to his God. No one who has a defect qualifies, whether he is blind, lame, disfigured, deformed, or has a broken foot or arm, or is hunchback or a dwarf, or has a defective eye, or skin sores or scabs, or damaged testicles. No descendant of Aaron who has a defect may approach the altar to present special gifts to the Lord. Since he has a defect, he may not approach the altar to offer food to his God. However, he may eat from the food offered to God, including the holy offerings and the most holy offerings. Yet because of his physical defect, he may not enter the room behind the inner curtain or approach the altar, for this would defile my holy places. I am the Lord who makes them holy. So Moses gave this instruction to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites. What am I doing? Ephesians 5:27 knew and to present her to himself as a virgin at church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. 2 Timothy 2:7. Reflect on what I'm saying, for the Lord will give you insight into all this. James 1:4. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If we are to understand Leviticus 21, we must read it in the original context, as we must read this passage as a timeless statement of God's holiness, but a revelation of God's holiness that leads to us to Christ. Taking that approach, we can see why there is a good news for our people, but especially for those afflicted with disabilities. In Leviticus 21 will follow us our 5 visions to help this good news. So the regulation of covenant text of Leviticus is necessary for articulating the differences between Israel according to the flesh and Israel according to the spirit, the church of Jesus Christ under the old covenant circumcision within flesh, and only for males under the new covenant circumcision is by spirit located in the heart, and for all those who would participate in the blessing of Christ's new covenant. Similarly, under the old covenant, physical uncleanness, leprosy, menstruation periods, emissions of sebum made the people of Israel unsusceptible for worship. In fact, Leviticus 11:15 gives copious notes on what to do when people of Israel were unclean in the flesh. In short, the whole arrangement of worship in Israel was based upon physical cleanness and holiness that came through physical means. Of Hebrews chapter 9:13, priests had to keep themselves rigidly clean in order to serve in God's household. Cleanness in the case was not a matter of hygiene, but a matter of honoring the Holy One of Israel and teaching the nation how to approach a holy God. As Leviticus 10:3 says, in the wake of Nav and Avihu offering unauthorized fire among those who are near me, the priests I would be sanctified, and before all the people I would be glorified. Such ways, the way God established worship in Israel, those who profess faith in God were to keep themselves clean, and the cleanliness was physical in nature, not just spiritual or a matter of the heart. That would come later under the new covenant, but in Leviticus, the whole system was one associated with the flesh. Second the law, Moses divided humanity into classes and prevented almost everyone from approaching God. Under the old covenant, there was also a divide between priests and people, unlike today, where the book of Hebrews invites all Christians to come approach the throne of grace. In Israel, only the sons of Aaron could do so. There was established in Israel different classes of people based upon differing levels of holiness. And to put it in order, it might look like this. Leviticus chapter 22. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons to be very careful with the sacred gifts that the Israelites set apart for me, so they do not bring shame on my holy name. I am the Lord. Give them the following instructions. In all future generations, if any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean when he approaches the sacred offerings of the people of Israel, contrary to the Lord, he must be cut off from the presence. My presence, I am the Lord. If any of Aaron's descendants has a skin disease or any kind of discharge that makes him ceremonially unclean, he may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has been pronounced clean. He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse, or by having an emission of semen, or by touching a small animal that is unclean, or by touching someone who is ceremonially unclean for any reason. The man who is defiled in any of these ways will remain unclean until evening. He may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has bathed himself in water. When the sun goes down, he will be ceremonially clean again and may eat from the sacred offerings, for this is his food. And he may not eat an animal that has died a natural death, or has been torn apart by wild animals, for this would be defile him. I am the Lord. The priest must follow my instructions carefully, otherwise they will be punished for their sin and will die for violating my instructions. I am the Lord who makes them holy. No one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Even guests and hired workers in the priest's home are not allowed to eat them. However, if the priest buys a slave for himself, the slave may eat from the sacred offerings, and if his slaves have children, they also may share his food. If a priest's daughter marries someone outside the priestly family, she may no longer eat the sacred offerings. But if she becomes a widow or is divorced and has no children to support her, and she returns to live in her father's home, as in her youth, she may eat her father's food again. Otherwise, no one outside the priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Any such person who eats the sacred offerings without realizing it must pay the priest for the amount eaten plus an additional 20%. The priest must not let the Israelites defile the sacred offerings brought to the Lord by allowing unauthorized people to eat them, and this would bring guilt upon them and require them to pay compensation. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 17. Worthy and unworthy offerings. And the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons, all the Israelites, these instructions which apply both to native Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. If you present a gift as a burnt offering to the Lord, whether it is to fulfill a vow or is a voluntary offering, you will be accepted only if your offering is a male animal with no defects. It may be a bull, a ram, or a male goat. Do not present an animal with defects, because the Lord will not accept it on your behalf. If you present a peace offering to the Lord from the herd of the flock, whether it is to fulfill a vow or is a voluntary offering, you must offer a perfect animal. It may have no defect of any kind. You must not offer an animal that is blind, crippled, or injured, or that has a wart, a skin sore, or scabs. Such animals must never be offered on the altar as special gifts to the Lord. If a bull or lamb has a leg that is too long or too short, it may be offered as a voluntary offering, but it may not be offered to fulfill a vow. If an animal has damaged testicles, is castrated, you may not offer it to the Lord. You must never do this in your own land. And you must not accept such an animal from foreigners and then offer it as a sacrifice to your God. Such animals will not be accepted on your behalf, for they are mutilated or defective. And the Lord said to Moses, when a calf or a lamb or a goat is born, it must be left with its mother for 7 days. And from the 8th day on, it will be acceptable as a special gift to the Lord. But you must not slaughter a mother animal and her offspring on the same day, whether from the herd or the flock. When you bring a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, sacrifice it properly so you will be accepted. Eat the entire sacrificial animal on the day it is presented. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. I am the Lord. And you must faithfully keep all my commands by putting them into practice. For I am the Lord. Do not bring shame on my holy name, for I will display my holiness among the people of Israel. I am the Lord who makes you holy. It was I who rescued you from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. I am the Lord. Leviticus 22:19-25. Animals with defects were not acceptable as sacrifices because they did not represent God's holy nature. Only perfect animals were used. God also wants us to give our best with our time, talents, and treasures. When we offer our best instead of the leftovers, we show the true meaning of worship and testify to God's supreme worth. Leviticus 23:1-4. God established several national holidays each year for celebration, fellowship, and worship. Much can be learned about people by observing the holidays they celebrate and the way they celebrate them. Verse 1-4. Conduct of the priest, chapter 1, chapters 21, 22, along with 16, 17, addressed to Aaron and his sons. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1, verse 4. Priests were not to defile themselves by touching the dead. except in the case of nearest relatives. Even entering the tent of the dead defiled a person for 7 days. Numbers chapter 19:14, and this would disqualify a priest from serving the Lord during the time, so he was forbidden to make himself unclean for any but his nearest relatives. Verse 4 probably means that because of his high ranks, he must not defile himself for any reason except those listed on verse 2 and 3. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 5, 9. Practices of the heating and defacing their bodies with signs of mourning for the dead were forbidden. The priest was not permitted to marry a woman profaned by a harlotry prostitute or a divorced woman. However, he could marry a widow. A priest's daughter who became a harlot was to be burned to death. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 10 and 15. A high priest was not permitted to mourn in customary ways or leave the sanctuary to show honor to the dead. He was to marry an Israelite virgin, and his married life was to be above reproach. Leviticus chapter 21, 16-24. A physical defect buried a man from the service of the priesthood: blindness, lameness, facial deformities, a deformed limb, foot or hand injuries, hunchbackness, dwarfism, defective eyes, itching diseases, scabs, or injured reproductive organs. Any son of Aaron who was defective in any of these ways could share the food of the priest, but he could not actively serve as a priest before the Lord. The holy food was the priest's share of the peace offerings. The most holy food was their share of other offerings. The priests who offered the sacrifice must be without defect because they portrayed Christ as our unblemished high priest. Leviticus chapter 22, verse 1-9. If a priest was ceremonially unclean through leprosy, a running discharge, contact with something defiled by a dead body, eating meat that had not been drained of its blood, or for any other reason, he was not to partake of the blood of the priest. That is what is meant by separate themselves from the holy things. If the priest was a leper or had a running sore, this disqualification probably lasted for a long time. In the other cases mentioned, the following ritual prepared for the priest. First, he must bathe himself, then wait until the evening, at which time he would be clean again. Leviticus chapter 22, 10, 13. In general, strangers, visitors, and hired servants were not permitted to eat the holy food, but a slave who had been purchased by the priest, as well as the slave children, could eat it. If the priest's daughter got married to an outsider, she was not permitted to eat it. But if she were widowed or divorced and childless and living with her father, then she could share the food of the priest. Leviticus 22, 14, 16. If a man ate some of the holy food unintentionally, he could make restitution by replacing it and adding 1/5, as in the case of the trespass offering. Leviticus chapter 22, verse 1. Leviticus chapter 22, 17, verse 30. Offerings brought to the Lord had to be without blemish, whether for burnt offerings or peace offerings. Diseased, disabled, or disfigured animals were forbidden. A bull or a lamb with an overgrown limb or a stunted limb could be present for a free will offering, but not for a votive offering. Castrated animals or those with damaged reproductive organs were not acceptable. Israelites were not to accept any of the above defective animals as an offering from a stranger. A sacrificial animal could not be offered until it was at least 8 days old. A mother animal and her young were not to be killed on the same day. The meat of a Thanksgiving offering was to be eaten on the same day that it was offered. Leviticus chapter 23, 22, verse 31, verse 33. The final paragraph explains why the Israelites were to keep and perform all these commandments of the Lord. It was because the God who had brought them out of the land of Egypt is holy, and several expressions in this short section stress the message of Leviticus as a whole. Not profane, holy name, I will be hallowed, and I am the Lord who sanctifies.